Hello. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'll go ahead and give it just a couple seconds while we have some of our other attendees joining. I know the weather out there in the East Coast isn't too friendly right now, so thank you for those who are able to join us. I know, especially in transportation, there's always a lot going on and the weather doesn't make any of it easier. So we appreciate all the work you do keeping our rail and public transit safe. So
Very
um,
important.
yeah, so thank you again to everyone. Here at Connex, we are an award-winning maintenance application used by companies like Wacko and Relam to help reduce paperwork, eliminate manual data entry, and streamline compliance and reporting. So essentially, our goal is to make life easier for the women and men out in the field, the shops, on the tracks, and things of that nature to help them by digitizing their inspections, their maintenance logs, FRA documentations, accessing internal SOPs and safety checklists that are going to help them on their day-to-day. Typically, the problem I see a lot is when I'm reaching out to some of our rail service organizations and short line railroads that they are still using a lot of heavy manual paper, FRA documents being stored in, filing cabinets for decades, so to speak, with really any limited visibility into any of this information. I often hear of setting Google reminders on your phones for when FRA records are due. And I kind of, personally, I think that there's a more efficient way that we can kind of streamline a lot of these things. And don't get me wrong, a lot of these processes have worked over the years, but our goal is to make these crews more efficient. Obviously, they wear multiple hats and go through lots of challenges. We find that by streamlining these processes, we can save 20% on their labor time. I know there's lots of guys at the end of their shift on a Friday spending time in their truck filling out paperwork when, they would like to get home to their friends and family as well. So, here at Connext, our goal, though, is to not only digitize, but integrate with your existing systems that you maybe have on the back end for ERP systems, NetSuites, and accounting, and essentially connect those together. So I would also like to connect you with my colleague, Evan, here. He has been an amazing asset to our organization, setting up customers who require heavy FRA documentations for hazmat shipping, is run large facilities and really need that visibility. So I'm going to go ahead and kick it over to you, Evan. Thank you again so much for everyone. We will do questions at the end. Feel free to drop them in the Q&A at the top. And as well as we're going to be sending everyone a digital guidebook for FRA compliance today as well. So there's lots of great content in there. I encourage you to look at. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Alexandria, for the warm intro. Appreciate that. Again, my name is Evan Ufkes, and I work here on the business development team at Connext. And just to piggyback on that great introduction there, I do want to focus on a couple key processes that we hear about a lot, during our conversations with numerous different companies, be it rail service companies, short lines, anyone who's involved, in the rail industry that is interested in digitizing or just kind of simplifying processes. And those really kind of highlight today around general equipment inspections, including rolling stock or heavy equipment, and of course, track inspections. Now, what I'm going to do is go ahead and share my screen. Let me just grab the window here. Alexandria, can you give me a thumbs up? That looks okay.
Yeah, you're on the login screen.
Perfect, perfect. Can you see my mouse there too as well?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So I'm going to use the mouse just to kind of represent where, my finger's going. Right now, I'm just mirroring my own phone using the application. So I just want to make sure that you kind of understand, where I'm pressing and the different buttons that I'm kind of highlighting as we go along here. Before I dive right into the demonstration, I would like to highlight one key aspect of iMarq, and that's the application that we're looking at here. And that is that each user that we deploy this application out to, which again is downloadable from the App Store, generally from either iOS devices or Android. So it's available in the App Store like any other app. But each user logs in with their own unique credentials. You can see that there's a username and password section here. This allows us to tailor the experience based on the role. So a mechanic, a field technician, an engineer, or a supervisor will only see the modules that are relevant, to their day-to-day responsibilities. This really helps reduce clutter. It simplifies the navigation of the application, and it minimizes, the number of clicks needed to actually get the work done and jump into the task at hand. So I'm going to go ahead and hit sign in here really quick. Let that sink in. Now, what I mentioned before, again, each user will have a unique login. For demo purposes, this has a whole lot of modules preloaded up. But what I'd like to start with is a rolling stock inspection form. So I'm going to go into this module here and select this option here. So right now, this is loading up the digital copy, the digital version of this rolling stock condition inspection form. Now, this is a fairly complex form. There's a lot of different sections. You can see here detailed in all these green. But what I want to first highlight is these tiny little red asterisks that you're seeing here. Now, this just indicates that this is a required field, meaning that the user that's executing this specific task, they can't finish or submit the form until all these required fields have been entered. So if I try to submit here, you can see it comes up with this little error message showing me that I need to enter in all this pertinent information. So keep in mind that these little red asterisks and all these little features that I'm going to run through here can be configured or input into any of your forms, any of your processes. We're trying to help simplify this being completed from the field or in a shop. So any of these things can be configured wherever you need them to be. Same thing goes for what we call conditional formatting. So let me just break down one of these different sections here. And again, you can see there's a lot of sections built out. Let's just look at the roof mounted equipment here. So I'm going to open this. This is going to break down some different questions I have to answer as an inspector. So there's a condition from 1 to 5. There's also a defect rating from A, B, C, and D. Say I put 2, maybe this is a 2 or even a 1. This is in poor condition. We can condition each and every feature here you see to be also a required field. So if you want your inspectors to give you an explanation or further explain why they're rating this as a 1, maybe it requires a comment, maybe it requires a photo, things like that, right? So you're ensuring that you're getting the data that you need, for better decision making down the road and for better reporting when it comes, down to getting a bird's eye view of really what's going on with this particular asset. In this case, a rail car of some kind. So let's just say I mark this as a 2 or a 3. I can enter comments. I can take photos. I can even put audio files in here. So if there's maybe a strange sound that I want to record and have this attached to that specific record, I can do that as well. I can also attach reference material or work instructions. So if I need a reminder, maybe I'm new on this job, maybe I'm doing this for the first time for some reason. I want to know what a 1 through 4 looks like. I can actually get the explanation of how to rate this directly from the PDF. So this will actually give me a breakdown of what is excellent, what is good, what is adequate, marginal, and so on. It even comes with some picture references as to seeing, what they're seeing, what constitutes, a good or excellent score and things like that. So I'm going to head back to the application and start filling out the data that I need to fill out. Again, attaching comments here is pretty simple, and all these features you see here, again, can be configured anywhere within the form. So I'm going to go ahead and add a comment. You can start typing away and or use the microphone for speech to text. And this is really handy so that they don't have to, sit there and type with their thumbs. They can go ahead and speak. It'll record as they go along. You can see now a comment's been added here with the little green check mark. Same thing for photos. If I want to attach a photo, I can also upload a photo from the device library and or take a photo live. So if I want to take a photo live, I'm going to go ahead and select this. I'll say take a photo, and I'm just going to take a photo of my mouse here as an example. I can use this photo, and I can also go back and annotate on top, which is what we call circling the problem. So if I want to circle the problem, this is going to load up the photo. Bear with me for a moment. I might need to update my demo system here. Okay, one moment while I go back and check on that. I'm going to make sure that I did nothing wrong there. I may have touched the wrong button.
Oh, I also think it's good to notate our voice to text option does work in multiple languages.
Absolutely.
Lots of organizations have nationwide crews, and for some people, it might just be easier to record this information in maybe their first language over their second. So I think that's helpful, especially to our French Canadian friends.
Yeah, great point. Great point. So it appears I did push the wrong button there, so I apologize. But you get the idea. After we take a photo, you're actually able to go and annotate on top, highlight focal points within the photo that you want to highlight, circling around the issue that you're seeing in the photo. It's a really great option. It really highlights what's going on. It's great for those who are going to be looking at this from an outside perspective, right? They're not the experts in the field that are taking these photos, so they need to get a good view as to what they're seeing and how they're going to assess, the next step. Moving on, I think we talked about voice to text, we talked about the photo options. Some other great options I'd like to kind of highlight quickly within this form is the geotag option. So if you are actually, working offsite, maybe you're outside of a shop, maybe you're, elsewhere, we have the ability to actually add these geotag options anywhere within the form or process. And that also allows the user to tag an exact location of where they're either taking this data, recording the data, or seeing some kind of defect during this general inspection here. That also goes for timestamping as well. So this is actually going to give you a nice broad view of who's doing what, where, and when, pretty much at all times. And of course, all these different areas you're seeing are all just basic breakdowns. So we can add in sections, you can add in signatures. If there are multiple people working on this, because this is a fairly complex document, if there are multiple people working on it, each person can essentially sign off on what part that they did so that you also have record of who performed which task, who took those photos, who left these comments, and so on. And in fact, these signature boxes look just like this. So these are real-time signatures. They can draw their unique signature, sign off. You can see the inspection date's been automated to today. So all of these different features, again, can be built into any of the forms or processes that you're currently using. So I'll go ahead and submit. Oh, gotta put that, I gotta put the information in above, like I mentioned before. So we gotta do a vehicle number. We can even store information like the vehicle numbers within the system so they can select from a drop-down menu here. Let's just drop down and grab this. We can put in a mileage, also take a photo of the mileage if necessary. Let's just put 123 as an example. and then say a safety instruction, meaning that, we looked over the safety instructions, things like that. And we can also add a signature there so that they sign off that they did actually view the safety instructions. Say submit, and that one should be good to go. Perfect, success, it's been done. All right. Now, the next task I do want to highlight, like I mentioned, is related to maintenance of way, and that's going to be track inspection. So I'm going to pull up an FRA required track inspection here. I'm going to go into my work queue. I'm going to find a track inspection that has been assigned to me. Here we go, right at the top. Once I see that, I can hit create and jump right into that specific task. And this is going to preload a digital form, right? The digital version of a FRA required track inspection. Now, if we know me as an inspector, they know my name, we can automate a lot of these fields, right? We can automate Evan Ufkes as the inspector. Maybe there's a specific subdivision that this has been pre-assigned to, so we can put that information in. Keep in mind, as long as we have a lot of this information, be it a planned task, we can automate a lot of the fields so that the inspector doesn't have to go through and ensure that they're filling out every single field. We can try to automate as much as that as possible, and that's what we're going to do, to help simplify the entire process. Oh, did my camera turn off? Sorry about that. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show just a kind of a basic overview of what this looks like, and it looks pretty simple from the outside. However, there's probably a lot that goes into this. So we know the name of the inspector. Let's just say it's me for now. I'm going to type my name in, say done, put a division in, and then we can start with the track. And we can configure as much of these track numbers as you want. We can even name these, specific to the track that you're, currently managing or overseeing or working on or being, contracted to work on. So what you'll do is you'll break this down. This will be, the track inspected. You can get some information here, again, as reference material. We can put in if this has been walked or high railed or no, add photos and comments if necessary, get further information on the switches that need to be inspected, and then of course, indicating that this has been walked and so on. Now, say I want to move on to defects, right? So here I am as an inspector. I'm going along the track, notating things such as, where I am and what I'm seeing and things like that. So I'm going to go into the defects. And here I can notate the track or switch number. Again, I can even use the geotagging function to notate the exact coordinates, latitude, longitude, of where the defect is. So think about this as maybe a later point in time when you need to come back and fix this issue, right? The inspector may not have time to fix the issue right there on the spot, and perhaps someone else is going to come back and finish this later. So they'll have the exact coordinates down within 4 feet of that exact defect. So they can put the coordinates here. We can even have a drop-down menu with the different FRA defect codes. And I know that that is a lengthy list. That can be a number of different codes with a very specific description, right, of what that defect is. If you need that built-in reference material there, they can have it. I mean, they don't have to carry around a physical book. They don't have to do any of that. This will be fully accessed right from the defect task itself. They can break that down right there. And they can also take measurements. So one key feature I do want to highlight is the LiDAR. So we do have the ability to take, measurements from the field. So as an example, be it an engine burn or surface spalling or, rail head wear, these are all things that require some form of measurement. And if you're not carrying around the exact tool at the right time, LiDAR is a very powerful tool. So right here, I'm going to go ahead and take an example. So I'm going to hit this LiDAR. I'm going to use my mouse as an example here. I'm going to say, let's just see how big this defect is, right? So I'm going to draw a line across. and measure it 4 inches. Great. Now I have that done. I can hit the check mark. And now I can see that that measurement's been automatically input into this specific field. So I'm going to go ahead and nature the defect. I'm going to give it a comment here. I'll just say, mouse is 4 inches long, something like that. And if there's remedial action. So again, if there is a follow-up task that needs to be done to fix this issue, like my mouse is 4 inches long, that's a big defect that you're finding in the field as an example. This could be further instructions on what needs to happen or who needs to take a look at it. Does this need to go through an approval process before you deploy someone out to go fix it, and so on. And again, we can put the defect code in there. I'll just put 1, 2, 3 as an example. I'll put a geolocation. In fact, I can turn this on. Put this my location on. Oh, I don't have the location turned on for my exact phone. So I'll just put location 456 and do a track number here. I'll say it's track 1. So now I found a defect here, and I can sign off on it. I can geotag the entire document if I wanted to. I can sign off on this with a date code and everything. And if I put the date in, this is also going to pull up a date keyboard. So I'm not inputting data that's incorrect. It's going to give me the exact data that needs to be input there. So I'll just put there. If there's any other information I want to put in here, like maybe there's some kind of barcoding information, I can do that. But that's essentially it. So what I'm going to do is hit save. You can see that this track inspection has been created. And now what I want to do is kind of showcase what the next step would look like. The whole idea is to finish that inspection record and fix the said issue. So what I want to do is move into pending. This pending folder is where you're going to find all of the jobs that have been started in the field that need to be essentially finished, right? So we're going to find, let's go find the field report that I just finished right here. Let's go look right out here. Let's go back. Nope, wrong one. It's not loading. And that one's not going to load up. So what I'm going to do is go back into this one. Jump into create. I'm going to go back down. So if you remember all the defects that we found in the first round, now we're going to come back and do a record of repair. So this is where we move from just capturing that information to actually closing the loop. And this is where we can essentially show that we've made the repairs done. We can put the repairs performed in here. We can show the date that it was done. Let's just say it's the next day. Put this in right here. We can even grab parts and inventory right from the system that you use to store those things. So if you want to grab some parts, right, we can grab parts out of here. You can select from a drop down and or barcode scan those parts out of the system. So it's a really great way to use the tool to, again, select the parts that are needed to fix these issues. So from the drop down, I'm going to go ahead and select this part right here, for instance. Grab a quantity. I used 3 of those to fix this issue. And if I need to add items, simply just add items down below. So I hit close. I'll set save. You can see a part's been added there because that's the parts that I used. And then I can put my repaired by. So this would be like my initials as a user. I'll just say, this is me, Evan Ufkes at Conex, as the person who fixed this. And then I can, of course, sign off on the document, put the date signed. This also can be automated, so I'll just put that here. And and then submit. Name of inspector. Gonna put my name again. Submit, submit. So now what we've done is from defect to done, we have a full paper trail and record of who inspected it, what they found, the parts that were needed to fix it, and all the labor and the time that went into that. And now you have a full digital paper trail of everything that happened, again, from defect to done. And that's, such a powerful and easy way to streamline the process, aside from doing it on paper. And, that kind of brings me right back to relying on manual paperwork for either of these tasks, be it the inspection that I just showed you or the track inspection. It creates major inefficiencies. It's like frequent errors due to safety critical documentation. It's slow access to data, poor visibility into what's happening in the field. And then just the essence of paper-based processes really drive up operational costs. It increases compliance risks, and it can really compromise safety. When handwritten records are either misread or misinterpreted, these are all things that we're trying to address within the industry now, and these are things that we can help address moving forward and really help eliminate. So I'm going to go ahead and turn that off because I think I've shown enough of that. And you probably don't want to hear me drone on more and more about the application. Alexandria, did you have any questions on anything that I covered today?
Well, I think it's also important. I think in our day and age, everyone has software, right? Multiple systems that we often find lack any integration or communicating with each other. Which again, people are searching through multiple dashboards, don't really have a true record of source, especially with inventory. I find that's one of the biggest ROIs, in my opinion, is actually tracking your inventory consumption by per person, per project, per day. Everyone has these large back-end systems that's telling you have $200 million of assets that are missing at the end of a year, but no one knows where they're going, which locations, especially with internal transfers. I think a lot of stuff kind of gets lost. In addition, I think it's also very helpful to be able to track your consumption and get alerts and notifications when you're low, especially with delays in our supply chains when it comes to ordering these available parts. Just having those that are readily available. And I think, again, a great point is whenever you are storing all this information on paper, it's not searchable information where imagine if you had a database of records, you could actually search the word corrosion applied across various locations, various times of the years. And I think that insight is so valuable. And having an application that's able to integrate with your backend systems is really where also that visibility kind of comes in. I never kind of look at us as like a standalone. Our goal is to integrate with those systems. I think especially NetSuite's a big one. Those licenses are tens of thousands of dollars, but the guys in the field are the ones who are actually, using that, but it's not connecting any of these systems. And like I said, everyone has software, but if they're not talking to each other, it's really not really a benefit. So for me, I think that's most important. Let's just check to see if anyone else has any questions. We have here, how does Connext integrate with existing systems like ERP? Those enterprise, asset maintenance. Can you talk about how we're actually I say we can communicate. I'm not a big tech person. Explain it to me. I don't know.
Oh, no. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty straightforward, really. We have as part of our product model, we have an open architecture design, meaning that we can, like you mentioned, integrate with systems and extend and enhance them through a mobile device. But it's pretty much a standard API connection that we have with these systems. And for those of you who don't really know what an API is, it's essentially just language between software systems that essentially allows us to push and pull information from those systems. So as an example, like you just mentioned, Alexandria, if they're using an existing ERP system like NetSuite or others out there to either manage their inventory levels or even manage some of the tasks, that they're doing, we can do lookups from the field as to what's in their inventory, and also take inventory, from those systems based on the tasks that they're executing from the field. So it's a pretty standard API connections. As long as it's available to us, we can connect.
Well, and I also think back touching on everyone has software. Not all softwares are easy to use for the crews in the field, right?
True. Very true. Or you need a
Tom
laptop
isn't
to
gonna
use it.
Yeah, Tom isn't going to want to log on to the NetSuite or any of these things on his phone, right? And by having these configured layouts per user, I mean, Tom might only get 2 buttons, and that's great because that's all Tom wants. And he wants to be able to pull up these forms, have documentation. And I think it's also really helpful for, as we kind of approach this silver tsunami, as I like to say, of a very, very experienced workforce kind of exiting the market, you're going to see an increase of newer technicians who maybe might need some assistance in accessing those standardized SOPs because they don't have the 30 years experience of doing it day on day repetition. So I think that's also a great way to ensure that things are being done correctly and efficiently to the standards of your organizations, as there is an increase in new labor. I think that's awesome personally. Let's see if we have any other questions. Okay, I think that there. I know, as I mentioned before.
All right, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, good. Oh,
No,
I was going to say,
yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, I was just going to say, there was one aspect of both inspections that I somewhat didn't touch on that I do want to touch on before we wrap this up. And that's our connectivity. Connectivity in the field is always a question. So people often ask us these questions. I mean, you know this better than I, that they're looking for a solution, or they're worried that they won't be able to connect, to the system of choice while in the field. Maybe they're in the middle of nowhere or underground somewhere, right? That's why we also support offline mode. So when you're in the field, you have no connectivity whatsoever, no Wi-Fi connection, no data connection. These forms still need to work, right? They still need to fill out this data. It's important for that to happen. So that's why, this being a native app, we can still load these forms, collect all the data, store that temporarily on the device's memory, and then once they come back into a signal, then it's automatically restored and uploaded to the cloud and then visible for all to see. So yes, we do support offline mode, and I think that was important to add on there.
I know there's so many great features. There just genuinely is, and a
I
lot
know.
of them.
How do we stuff in
a lot
3
of
to 3 minutes?
Well, and a lot of it is too is stuff that people are already doing. People already have multiple apps on their phone. They're able to take photos, right? But who wants to try to take a photo, email it to themselves, forward it to Becky, and then she's going to associate it. Then she doesn't even know what she's looking at. Talk about paperwork and documentations. The duplicate data entries, trying to read some of this handwriting, I'm sure is a challenge in itself, right?
Sure.
Being able to connect your quality assurance team, whether if it's like you're a shipper or to your supervisors, or maybe it's even to streamline your customer communications, right? Companies are spending thousands and thousands of dollars on rail maintenance, and they want some visibility, right? They want to know why their project is maybe delayed. And so being able to have visibility for your customers, quality assurance, FRA documentations, I think makes organizations just more efficient overall. And a lot of these tools are already what some of the large class ones are building in-house that aren't available to the public, right? But it's positioning them to grow stronger. And our goal is, essentially support the other organizations out there with them and helping partner with them to provide something that is easy, adaptable to use, and help their organizations become more efficient as, times change and things progress, right? We don't want to be stuck in the 90s of paperwork. I just dated myself there. I was born in the 90s. So I'm not too much of a youngin', although I hope I look like it. But I guess that will say, Evan, is there anything else you want to touch on before we wrap it up?
I don't think so. I think we've covered a lot of good topics today. And if anyone has any questions, please feel free to reach out to Alexandria or myself. Happy to address them offline at any time.
Yes. Thanks again, everyone. Stay safe, stay warm. We will be attending SWARS coming up here soon. If you'd like to connect that'll be in Houston, as well as my favorite event of the year, the American Short Line Railroad Association's annual conference in Minneapolis. Looking forward to meeting a lot of y'all there as well. So thank you again, everyone. Have a blessed day and safe travels to everyone as well.